One moment, folks. We're trying to get our friends over at D Live up with us, and we'll be starting in just 1 second. Come on. And for some reason, it's not connecting at this moment.
What?
All right, well, we're going to start. All right, and so everybody, just so you know, hello everyone, and thank you for joining me. This is Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier, and you're watching No Soundbites Allowed. Thank you for joining me today. I know there wasn't a lot of prior notice. We wanted to celebrate and thank our friends over at D Live for joining us, but it seems there's a slight issue with the connection. We will fix that. Separate of that, though, we want to say hello to everyone, and we want to talk about what's going on with the new tax hikes that are going to be hitting New York State and the entire nation, America. It's a pretty big deal. Taxes are going up, costs will be going up, your dollar will be going down. And we're going to tell you a little bit about that. Before we get started, we do want to mention that every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and now we will be on D Live as well, making sure that we are able to provide you with free speech, no matter what format you want to look at, so that we cannot be silenced. Your voice will not be able to be silenced. So we look forward to that. And we thank everyone for joining us. And of course, we do long-form political commentary here if this is the first time that you're with us. And I do see that we've already got Tony mentioning hello, and it's good to see you, Tony, as well. So let me get into this. Actually, and I do want to mention we do have 2 interviews coming up very shortly. We should have tomorrow an interview with a member of Binghamton University, which will have a big impact on the local community, and also a member of Congress very, very shortly. So that being said, and someone's trying to reach me now on my private phone, let's talk about what's going on with taxes. And I know that we've heard this before. We've dodged a bullet when it came to the minimum wage, as we were talking about that back on January 15th. We dodged yet another bullet when it came to the predictions, or maybe we won't, about 2020 in the second half that we were talking about back on February 17th, when we highlighted the fact that approximately 30% of businesses in the United States have failed. They're gone. They have closed forever and will never come back. In New York State, looking forward to the next 6 months, we're looking at very likely seeing another 40% of businesses close forever. Now, these are big numbers. You're talking about almost 70% of businesses in New York State and possibly throughout the entire nation will be closing in the next 6 months. And it doesn't matter that the $2 trillion in COVID relief were already spent. That's not saving the businesses. Opening up might save the businesses, but we can tell you for sure, continuing to do what we're doing right now will not save them. The analysis has been done. As we've shown you, this is the projections that are out there. So the question is, what's going to happen next? What is the answer? How do we save our businesses? How do we lower the unemployment rate that has literally doubled from last year? We were looking at 3.8% last February 2020 when we started the shutdown, which this is now the 1-year anniversary. We've had a full year of restrictions and limitations and COVID shutdowns. And currently we're looking at 6.2% unemployment, 11.1% if you take into account people who are forced to work part-time, people who are not able to get a job. This is how bad it is. And it's looking to get worse. Because we've just heard today, as it's been reported, and we can show you from Bloomberg, as it appeared on Yahoo News, the Biden administration is planning its first major tax hike since 1993. 1993. There's a lot of people who are watching this right now on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, on D Live. They've never seen a time where taxes were higher than where they are right now. or where we're going to go to. And that's very important. And we can see that the idea is that we're going to be raising taxes on the rich. And I know there's a lot of progressives out there right now, the Democratic Socialists of America, especially the Ithaca chapter. You're looking at BLM, Antifa. They're happy as hell right now. They're hearing, we're going to tax the rich. That's the idea. We're going to tax people with $400,000 or more. But that's not exactly correct. Because as you can see here, they're looking to increase the corporate tax rate to 28%. That they're going to be looking at cutting the ability of small businesses to write off taxes. They're getting rid of that. And they're going to be looking to have a higher capital gains tax. Now you may say, well, Mike, this is a great thing because the Tax Policy Center is saying that it's going to bring in $2.1 trillion. And we already spent $1.9 trillion on the latest COVID relief. We've actually spent $4 trillion because there was a COVID relief in December as well. People tend to forget that. The news media doesn't want you to think about how much money we have spent. And of course, Biden's Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, is saying that we have to pay for this, that this money has to come from somewhere. I know. Everyone thought the $1.9 trillion that we just spent, of which only a third of that is actually coming out as a check to you for $1,400, not the $2,000 that you were promised. I know you thought, well, that's just free money. No, Janet Yellen is telling you right now, Biden administration is telling you right now, it's not free money. It's coming out of your pocket. How it's going to come out of your pocket is the big question. Now, Biden says we're just going to raise taxes, and that's going to pay for it in 10 years. If he's right, at about $200 billion per year. That's what he's saying. That's not exactly how it's going to work, because he's following the example of New York State. And in New York State, as it's just come out, the New York State legislature has now proposed that there are new taxes. That's right. You just went through COVID. You lost your job. The business is closed forever, and taxes are going up in New York State, because that's just the best idea possible. When you lose population, when you lose money, the idea is keep spending. In fact, spend more money and tax the people who are left even more. Now, I want to get into this a little bit because New York State legislature has proposed $7 billion in new taxes. And again, it's all on the rich. It's only the rich people who are going to pay. And I have a bridge to sell you if you believe that. It's called the Brooklyn Bridge. You can get it really cheap. Let's really look at this. We just got, after a year of begging for the United States government to bail out New York State, Governor Cuomo got $12 billion, about almost $13 billion to bail out New York State, because his failed policies have bankrupted or virtually bankrupted this state. And we're going to get a fresh, new, a lavish amount of money from you, the taxpayer. And it's coming out of your pocket, just like Janet Yellen said. And we're giving it to New York State. And New York State, for its part, and I'm going to get to the comments in 1 second, New York State is going to spend even more money than they spent before. We're going to spend $2.8 billion. We're spending more money than we spent in 2020, more money than we spent in 2019. And we are losing money. We lost money in 2019. We lost money in 2020. We're losing money now. But the idea is we're going to spend even more. Now, I see a comment here. Poppy mentions free is never free. Plus, they still had $1 trillion from the last one that wasn't used sitting there. That's very true. And Dal just mentions that evening. Must be big news to be streaming today. Well, no, I do occasionally like to do a live stream from time to time. But it is big news. We're spending money. Yes, Dal, New York State is bankrupt. It is bankrupt, and they want to be even more bankrupt. And this is the thing. We got the money from New York State, from the United States government, to cover the losses that we had. And we know that going back just to 2019, February 2019, we saw on the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal was talking about, you know what, Governor Cuomo, you had a tax epiphany. You suddenly realized that tax the rich. Here's the line right here. Tax the rich, tax the rich, tax the rich, tax the rich. We did that. God forbid the rich leave. That was the fear that Governor Cuomo had in 2019, February of 2019, a little more than 2 years ago. He also went on to say, I don't believe raising taxes on the rich. That would be the worst thing to do. You would just expand the shortfall. God forbid if the rich leave. And he's right, because New York State already is taxing the top 1%, 46% of the money they make. And you know what the answer was for the people who were making this money? They left New York. 61% of people who left of New Yorkers moved out. 38% moved in. The people who are leaving are taking about $150,000 per person. The people who are coming in make less than $50,000. That's 2/3 of the money that they want from taxes that are going out and not coming in. And this is when the economy was good. This is when we had an economy that was running at 3.8 unemployment. It gets worse. And I'm going to go into some details, but I want you to understand, again, from 2019, according to the AP, make no mistake, a progressive tax is a tax hike on you. With the top 1% of earners providing nearly half of New York State's income tax revenue, New York serves as an example of what happens when a state bases its budget on contributions from just a handful of wealthy people. It's volatile. At the end of the day, the families who can't leave the state pick up the tab for those whose money is mobile. Calls for fairness are little consolation when you're wondering where $2 billion to run the government went. Now, let's think about that for a second. Because we know that they're going to be taxing the rich. And we have already seen in 2019, when we did this, they picked up and $2 billion walked out the door. And you know who's left to pay for that? You and me. And you know who was paying that? The small businesses. Small businesses had to come with the money, which means money came out of your pocket to do that. And that cost you more. It hurt New York more. And as Ann mentions, we'll be bankrupt soon. Absolutely. We are going bankrupt. And Dal, it's not $52 billion from the Fed, it's $100 billion that we got. And who's paying for this? The small businesses. You know, in 2020, nearly half of the small black businesses went out of business forever. It was disproportionate, the number of black businesses that failed across the United States and in New York State especially. That comes from Forbes on August of 2020. We know that it got even worse, as we were showing you back on February 21st. We had over 30% in New York State, in New Jersey, businesses that closed forever, most of them being small businesses, most of them being black-owned and minority-owned businesses. And for those people who are struggling right now to keep going, to keep their doors open, Joe Biden wants to increase taxes. New York State wants to increase taxes. Think about that for a second. If you're struggling right now to just pay your bills, imagine if your bills went up higher. Imagine if you have to pay more money. Who do you think's going to come up with that money? Where is that money coming from? Who's paying for that? You are, the consumer. They're going to charge you more money for everything that you buy. They're going to cut the hours of their workers just to pay taxes. This isn't about making profit. And I know everyone keeps saying, well, it's only the big businesses. At $400,000, that's not a big business. That's a mom and pop store. That's the local business down the block from you. That's who makes $400,000 in revenue. That's not what they get to take home. That's not what you're paying taxes. It's just like when you pay taxes. You're paying taxes on how much you make a year before they take out taxes. You get paid $50,000 a year. You're getting taxed on that. And hopefully you get it back. Except businesses aren't. In fact, that's why we lowered taxes back in 2017, under the prior administration, whose name YouTube and Facebook hate us to mention. Under the prior administration, we lowered taxes so people could have more money, and that meant that we got an unemployment rate that went down to 3.8%. People were able to get jobs, and they made more money. And Biden wants to turn that around and crush black businesses. And I know people were saying, well, Mike, black business. He loves black people. Then why is he trying to close even more black businesses? I have to ask you that. And when I say that this is going to affect everyone, this was from CNBC itself. The dollar remains vulnerable to significant depreciation. This was being said back in October of 2020. And what they said? The analysis said that a victory for former Vice President Biden would mean any dollar depreciation is set to be very clear and very pronounced. You know what depreciation means? Your money is worth less, it costs more. It means that instead of spending $1 to get a loaf of bread, you have to pay $1.20 for a loaf of bread because your money is not worth as much. The money is becoming worth less. And as you raise taxes, you depreciate the value. As you spend money out of nowhere, just making it up, as we did with the 2 COVID relief funds, we make less money. Dow mentions that was the business retention program. The business retention program is only $50 billion. That's not enough. That's not going to keep businesses open because no matter how much money the government wants to just throw money at it, they want to say, oh, we'll give $100 billion, $150 billion to small businesses. And that's a one-time benefit. What about the next month and the month after that? What about 6 months down the road? If no one is able to go to the business because they don't have a job, if they can't spend money, that business won't make money. If they charge more, people buy less, especially when that money is only going to paying their taxes. It means you're not getting out of the hole. And someone still has to pay for the money that you gave them. That $1.9 trillion has to come from somewhere. And it's coming from you. If you think only the rich are getting taxed more, well, you are a democratic socialist. Hello, you're a progressive, fantastic, and you're wrong. It's pure basic economics. You don't have to like it, but it's a fact. I know, Jason, DLive is not putting it through right now. I don't know why it's not going live. We were hoping to launch with them today, but obviously something's wrong. We'll fix that later. Now, I want to make sure that everyone understands how severe this is. According to the New York Post, back on November 29th of 2020, a third of small businesses in New York and New Jersey closed forever. This is really bad. And people are fleeing New York State. We lost 70,000 people just from New York City alone. They took $34 billion with them. Think about that. 70,000 people left New York State because of COVID, the closures, the lockdowns, the business. There's no more business for them. And they took $34 billion. And New York State is going to spend more money this year than last year. Where's that $34 billion in taxes that they are already spending coming from? Remember, they're going to spend $208 billion. And I know a lot of people are still going to keep coming back to me and say, well, Mike, it's only going to be the rich. You and I aren't going to pay for that. Yes, you are. And I'll prove it to you. Part of this new tax is an 18% surcharge on corporate franchises. That means McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King, all those franchises that we all like to use. On utilities, that's your electric bill, your heating bill. You might even call it your internet bill. And insurance companies, like your car insurance, which means you're going to pay more. You're going to pay more to go to Wendy's and Burger King to get that, to go to Pizza Hut, to order Domino's. You're going to pay more. You're going to pay more on your electricity. You're going to pay more on your heating and for your heating bill and your water bill. They're going up. And you're going to pay more for your insurance on your car. Guess what? That's not rich people. That's you. You're paying for that. Oh, yes, the big headline is we're charging the wealthy. We're going to tax the rich who are moving out and taking their money with them. But you're still going to pay 18% more on your water bill, your electric bill, your car insurance, and to get any food. Wait a minute, that doesn't sound like the rich are paying for anything. In fact, as I said, and as I quoted from Reuters itself, $34 billion just walked out the door of New York State. This $200 billion that they want to increase spending on, that they're going to spend on illegal aliens and to give you free stuff, that money's coming from somewhere. And it's not coming from the 70,000 people that took $34 billion with them. So the real deficit right now is not just the $12 billion in debt that we had from 2020. It's that $12 billion plus another 34 on top of it. We're talking almost $50 billion short. That's what you're paying. That's what they want you to make up in taxes. You have to pay for $50 billion because someone else was smart enough and rich enough and had the opportunity to leave. And Joe Biden is looking at that and saying, you know what? That sounds like a really great idea. Let's tax everyone more. Let's bankrupt the nation. Let's cause all the poor people in America to pay more money because why not? Let me come back to some of the comments here. So Tony mentions that, things run downhill and we're at the bottom. It's a $34 billion increase in spending. Yes, it is. Poppy mentions that the kicker is this: only 9% of the $1.9 trillion even goes to the people. That's the $1,400 check we're talking about. The rest is for paying for other countries and for other programs. Tony mentions that my propane bill is up almost $1.25 since the resident houseplant sat at the table. Yeah. We've already seen what happens when we lost 11,000 people because of the Keystone Pipeline. 11,000 people lost their jobs, and everyone paid more in taxes for their gasoline. And so this is continuing to go even higher. Dow mentions that it's never just the rich. They either leave or have accountants to preserve their wealth. The next high earnings tier, the middle class, gets stuck with the lion's share. And that's very true. And it is, in fact, happening. But no one's telling you this. There's no one else in the news media who's actually sitting down and telling you this. What they're telling you is the headline. The only headline they're giving you is, oh, there's going to be a tax hike. They're telling you that the headline is that it's going to be new taxes on the wealthy. You're going to hear things like, it was, I believe, and I want to make sure I get it right. Yes, it is. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. We are heartened that the state legislature is beginning to take the steps towards progressive, sustainable revenue streams, a sign of the tireless organizing and advocacy from thousands of grassroots New Yorkers. That's from the Democratic Socialists of America, which is, of course, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The Working Families Party said the proposed budgets use a three-pronged approach of simultaneously raising income, corporate and wealth taxes on the richest New Yorkers. Thank you for following the leadership of grassroots organizations across the state. Yeah, the socialists are happy. They're bankrupting. They're redistributing wealth. They're taking your money and they're going to give it to someone else, very likely a illegal alien who is on the list. Remember, the checks that are being sent out include illegal aliens. But they're happy because the Democratic Socialists of America, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, they want you to have less. That's their goal. And New York State, a very progressive, super blue state, has been very intent on raising more and more taxes to destroy more and more businesses so that they can say, see, everyone's the same now. Everyone's poor. Everyone gets the same thing. They don't want to talk about the fact that black businesses are disproportionately being closed, that Hispanic businesses and women-owned businesses are disproportionately being closed, that people are losing their homes, our neighbors are being forced out of this state because they can't afford to be here. They don't want to talk about that part. They don't want to talk about the fact that you're going to pay more in insurance, in food, you're going to pay more for your utilities. You're paying for this. Let me come back to some of the comments. Jordan mentioned Sunday show was constantly buffing every time I tried to watch, but watched the upload on Monday and just have to say there was someone who was very rude because of how that happens sometimes. Now, I have to say, this is very important. And I thank you, Dow. I know it's the middle of the week. It's 5:30. People are just getting off of work. We want to be on D Live, but that's all right. We'll have this uploaded there as soon as we can. But I think it's very important. No one else in the news media, none of the other commentators are out here saying, folks, take a second and think about this. We have the example. New York is the experiment. Because we are the bluest of blue states, because we're progressive, we are the example the rest of the country is using. And we know for a fact that so far the policies that have been put in place, according to the BBC, have caused jobless rates to be over 12%. 12%. Again, the national rate is only, oh, you can't see it on that screen there. It's 6.2. And we're paying twice that in unemployment. We have a serious problem. And I know people have realized it because when we look, according to the Siena poll, question 22, are we putting in place the right plans? Is Governor Cuomo putting the right plans into place for New York to reopen? You know what? No one believes it. The best you can find is 33% think the plans right now for opening up New York State, 33%. That's before they found out taxes are going up, before people found out your utilities are going up. But in fact, you're not supposed to know that. No one's talking about that. They're talking about the rich paying for more. They're not talking about the fact your insurance is going to go up, that your utilities, your electric bill, your water bill is going to go up. They're not talking to you about that your food is going to go up. And that's on top of the jobs they've already killed and the businesses they've already closed. They're not telling you that 40% of businesses in New York State didn't think they were going to be able to survive with tax rates at 21%, and now they're going up to 28%. They didn't think they could survive right now with people not having enough money and having the inability to go out and spend right now. Imagine when New York prices go up, when you have even less money because you're paying it for your electric bill. How many businesses are going to go out of business for that? How many more? And I know the progressives love to talk about black businesses and women and minorities. How many more of these businesses are they going to drive out of business because of what they're doing with taxes? Because they're making it impossible for business owners to stay in business. I'm just trying to give you an honest opinion. And the links for everything I'm talking about will be in the description after we're done so that you can go back and look through these sources for yourself. These are major sources: the BBC, New York Post, Forbes, CNBC. It's their numbers. It's their information. They're just wording it very carefully so that you don't notice, oh, you're paying for this. This is going to be your job on the line. This is going to be your business that's going to close. This is going to be money coming out of your pocket because they want the headline, it's free money. They want the headline, it's only the wealthy. They don't want you to think about, well, at the bottom line, you're paying for this. This is your money. Star Raptor mentions, come on, we already have 1/3 of businesses closing already. We are going to have more. Yes, we're going to have more. And New York keeps crumbling, and it's going to continue. And this is, the New York State Legislature is controlled by the Democratic Party. It's a single party, just like the New York State, the American Congress. And the Senate and the presidency are all Democrats. No one's there to stop them. No one can stop them right now. They are doing this because they want to be more and more progressive. They want you to be on that same progressive train. And they're going to redistribute your wealth, whether you want to or not. And you may not like what I'm saying. You can be a progressive and you can say, Mike, I don't like that. I think it's great to redistribute wealth. Well, this is the process that it happens in. And I want you to understand the reality of what you're dealing with. This is how they take your money and redistribute it. This is how they bankrupt your business and they give and leave you unemployed. Because it's never just the rich. And we can go back through history and you will see it's always been this way. Back in the 70s, the taxes in New York are going up so much that we're going back to the 1970s since the last time we had taxes this high. A lot of people weren't alive then. I was. I know a few people who are watching are. Ask people how well they were doing in New York State. How many people left New York State when the taxes were that high? We lost over 1 million people in 1 year. And now we want to top that number. We have already lost over 1.8 million people in New York State prior to 2020 because of the taxes and the regulations and the bad economic policy of the state legislature and Governor Cuomo. And their answer is, well, the government will just give us more money. So let's keep spending. We're spending more money this year than in 2020 or 2019. We couldn't pay our bills in 2019 or 2020. And Joe Biden's looking at that saying, well, if New York State will do it, the bluest of the blue states, we have to do it for the nation too. This is really terrifying news, folks. And no one is going to give you the straight answer. And what I've said so far is irrefutable. The sources are saying it and have been saying it for some time. And no one wants to give you the straight answer. They want to sell you the headline. Only the wealthy will pay. Well, you're wealthy compared to 90% of the world. And you are going to definitely pay. And your quality of life is definitely going to go down. Poppy mentions, this keeps going this way, 2/3 of the small businesses will be gone. Yes, they will. Yes, they will. And let me be a little bit more clear. According to the information as of February 17th, as we had reported, 30% of businesses are already gone, small businesses predominantly in New York State, with another 40% that are targeted to close in New York State within the next 6 months before we add the new taxes in place. So it could be 70% of businesses that are going to go. Now, I know Lisa mentions the 9 scariest words. I'm from the government. I'm here to help. And boy, they are trying to help us with heaps, with shovels. Jason mentions that, well, that could have us all living in cargo containers, part of the Green New Deal. Yeah, that is one way to resolve this. Poppy mentions it's going to get much worse than people can wrap their heads around. It can, but that's why I'm taking a moment to speak with you about it. And this isn't going to go on. This episode is, we're going to be ending that shortly, because I just want to make this very clear. Because when you watch your nightly news tonight and they give you a 30-second soundbite and say, hey, the rich are going to be paying more in taxes, aren't you happy? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Democratic Socialists, are very happy. The Working Families Party is very happy because the rich are going to pay more, and they're going to let it go. And they're not going to mention to you, oh, by the way, your insurance, your car insurance, all your insurance, it's going up. Your health insurance, that's going to go higher. Oh, by the way, your water bill, your electric bill, your heating bill, that's going to go up. They're not going to mention that. They're not going to mention that you're going to pay more for food and that many of the small businesses around you are going to close. And many of your neighbors who can't afford the rent or the mortgage they have, they're going to leave New York State, which means you're going to pick up that bill too. Just like 70,000 people who left and took $34 billion of the tax revenue that they already spent and that they're planning to spend more. That money's gone. You're going to pay for that too. The news tonight will not, mark my words, I will donate $100 to any Democratic socialist charity that you can think of, whatever the majority of people who watch this prefer. If any single nightly news mentions that your utilities are going to go up, that if any of the nightly news mentions your insurance is going to go up, not the rich, yours, that you are going to pay more in taxes for your water bill, your electric bill, your utilities, that you're going to pay more in your insurance, that you're going to pay more for food. If even one news agency, any major news media outlet, NBC, ABC, CBS, MSNBC, CNBC, any of those guys, any of the left-leaning ones, if even one of them mentions the things I've just mentioned to you today, I'll donate $100 to any, whatever progressive left-leaning organizations out there, because they're not going to tell you the truth, but I will. Well, folks, there you go. You have my challenge. When you watch the nightly news and they spend 30 seconds to a minute and a half telling you how this is a great idea, when they go and get the quotes from AOC and from Chuck Schumer, and they go to Kirsten Gillibrand and your local assembly member from the Democratic Assembly members, and they say, this is a great idea and you're not going to pay for it, and that Biden is following the lead of Governor Cuomo, a man that everyone in New York, 2/3 of New York, don't believe is doing a good job, well, no worries. They're going to say that to you, and they're going to just leave out the information. I've made my challenge. You have it here live so that you can follow up on it. Hold me accountable. I look forward to seeing those comments. By the way, if you've made it this far, I hope you like and share this so other people will be aware of what they're going to be paying very, very shortly. And of course, every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream. We hope to see you there. We will have D Live working by then. So if you're on D Live, you can see us as an alternative to YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And we thank you for taking the time to be with us today. Please, most of all, do subscribe, because that allows more people to see this and to share their thoughts, just like the people you've seen on screen today. I want to thank everyone for taking some time in the middle of the week to join us, and I look forward to talking to you again very, very soon.